From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt. Noel is not present, but will be rejoining us shortly.
They call me Ben. We are joined, as always, with our super producer, Paul, Mission Control Decant. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. If you're listening to this show the day it comes out, you are officially part of our listener mail segment. We do this every week. You are the most important part of the stuff they don't want you to know, and we love to hear from you. Even more importantly, we love to share your stories with our fellow conspiracy realists. Every week, when you don't hear us podcasting, we're buried in research and we're pouring through correspondences from across the world to us. Today, we're going to explore some messages to our Instagram, Conspiracy Stuff Show. We're also going to explore some of the emails. And yes, Samurai, I do read every single email. Yep. I think Matt and I both read every single email we get sent. So thank you. And I quite enjoy the way you write. We're going to hear from some great folks here. Alexandra, Travis, Jessica H., Sam in Japan. And we're going to talk a little bit about some fascinating responses to an earlier listener mail regarding blood donation and organ donation and the rules surrounding that. We're also going to hear from an anonymous source about a strange Amazon TikTok conspiracy. It's true that there is a conspiracy, but we can't wait to hear what you think about it, folks. Before we do all that, however, we're going to start today's show with an email that I think, Matt, caught both of our interests about a relatively recent religious movement. And we were talking off air, peek behind the curtain here, folks. I spend a lot of time scouring through some pretty sketchy stuff to get a look at up and coming cultic organizations. That's kind of what I call them, because we want to know whether these things will become dangerous. And this is something that can affect, again, anybody from any imaginable demographic. It's always offensive, to me at least, when people say that only the credulous are taken in by manipulative, charismatic leaders. Anybody can be taken in by a dangerous organization like this. So maybe we start there, knowing that we will probably have a full episode on this and organizations like this in the near future.
Absolutely, Ben. Let's begin here. We received an email from Alexandra. It was on a Monday. I'm just going to preface that there. We received this on a Monday. She wrote, "Hey guys, I'm a moderately long-time listener. I love your show, and when I saw this story pop up on my Facebook, I thought, who would be better to tell this story than stdwytk? And here we are. I'm attaching a link to a recently discovered international cult that started 20 minutes from where I grew up. It's called The Body. And if you haven't already heard of it, it's a religious faith-based cult. I won't go into details. Most of them are in a link below, and you may be able to find some other information on it that I cannot find. The wow factor here is that this is a freshly unearthed underground cult that started many, many years ago with only a select few families from the area. It does have very awfully triggering events, and I hope you can do a show on it. I'd love to hear it come from you guys. Much love forever and always, Alexandra." Oh, that is very, very sweet. So thank you for sending that, first of all. But also no thank you, because I woke up on Tuesday, read this, and I went down a rabbit hole, and I lost most of my Tuesday, Alexandra, so thanks so much. I'm joking. I'm totally joking. Thank you, seriously, because it was a rabbit hole that was well worth my time and I think our time. So you mentioned it. A cult, a religious organization called The Body. The link you sent us was The Body INTL or international.com. And if you follow that link, if you go there, you can learn all about this group. There are some humans running that site that have been doing research on this cult, the body, for quite a while. And they've posted a ton of information. They've also included a video that is prominently posted there on the site titled The Land of the Body, an Alaskan Cult Story. It is, I believe, by Syran Warner, Syranwarner. And this is a fairly extensive documentary that goes through some investigations of the body that have been occurring for some time. I guess, Ben, the best thing to do here is to start with what the website, the Body INTL, says about this group. So I'm going to read verbatim here from that site. Quote, "The Body is an active Christian fellowship that holds its services in the homes of members belonging to the congregation. The group started as an isolated collective made up of a few families on the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska, but has since become an international faith organization. Despite the Body being active and moving around the globe in recent years, they've remained an underground phenomenon for most of their history." So, okay, it's an underground group started in the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. What makes this group interesting or noteworthy? Well, first of all, you heard me say that the group holds its services in the homes of members, right? That's an important thing. Often groups like this start that way. A group of like-minded people begin holding meetings in one of the dwelling places of one of the members, and then it expands out and it grows. In the case of the Body, and at least according to that YouTube documentary that I mentioned, they began very quickly, as these groups do, taking in large donations from members, from very committed members. And those donations were used to purchase a massive amount of property on that Kenai Peninsula. And this includes members selling their homes where they lived, often with their families, which included children, and donating the money to the church, then being given property by the group, by the Body, on that large swath of property. So a small space, right? A tract of land out there where they could go and build their own tent or whatever structure so that they and their families, again, including often children, could live and then just live in a congregation on that property. So that's physically how this began, how it started, right? The question is, what makes this thing a cult, right? What are the teachings that make this thing a cult? Is there a leader involved? Is somebody who is maybe manipulating the flock in some way or another, or at least, using money in a way that you wouldn't want it to be used? There is a leader that is mentioned by name on that site. I think it's mentioned fully maybe once or twice. Other times the name is referred to, I'll say it as Mark B, someone named Mark B. I would say that from information gleaned on the website and in the YouTube documentary and a few other places, you can, if you wish, find out who this person is. You can find out a lot of information about this person if you wish to go down the rabbit hole that deeply, and about the various companies that have been founded, LLCs and other, I forget what it's called. It's the not-for-profit entities that have been formed.
501c3.
That's it, 501c3, things like Sought Out, ANPC. There are all kinds of names like that you can discover if you wish, such as Sage Mountain Studio, LLC. You can find all that stuff. You can track it down. We may do that in a further episode, but not right now. That's where kind of the money shifts around, right? The property shifts around through these LLCs and front companies. When it comes to the religion aspect, the teaching aspect, the Body, as it was named, focuses on the physical body. The teachings have a lot to do with a passage that you can find in the Bible where Jesus washes the feet of people. And it's not like he's asking people to wash his feet. He is washing the feet of others, maybe those who are would be considered by society to be lesser than him. And it is a pretty powerful part of, in my opinion, a powerful part of the Bible of like help out those who need help, right? No matter what your situation is, you can always help someone who needs it. This group, the Body, kind of morphs that, changes it. and makes that message, along with many other passages of the Bible, combines them into this message about how you need to know yourself physically, your own body. And you also need to know the bodies of others in your congregation, specifically the body of your leader. And you can just imagine where that goes.
Right. Yeah. I want to take a second and shout out an earlier YouTube video we did, which holds up, which will give you some guiding points about how cults are started or cultic organizations, as well as the pretty good, somewhat snarky, but pretty good bullet point list of how to tell what defines a cult. Because as we mentioned earlier on air, you don't need religion to make a cult. It's just a very easy entry point. Cults are really kind of a collection of tactics, more so than any solid specific beliefs. But I want to shout out, Matt, before we continue, just Alexandra's excellent link there to the Body International. That website is a treasure trove of information. And there was a really interesting thing, I know you saw it too, where they start talking about how the names can be so difficult, because names are just like any other thing you wear. Names are just a kind of clothing you put on yourself or an organization. And because this thing was called the Body, it should be no surprise that there are multiple cultic organizations or religious movements calling themselves the Body. The same reason, by the way, that if you look through the span of ancient human history, most ancient communities, their word for themselves is the people, or like the real people, or the actual people. So the Body can be a tricky thing research-wise to find the exact body, but they've done a good job, and you've done a bang-up job as well here.
Oh yeah, there's so much information, especially when it comes to where the body itself has moved after it morphed and became that thing called sought out for a while. Then that dissolved, but then the body continued on, and then it became another name that I honestly can't recall it in this moment. I don't want to search through my notes for it. But you can look at a place called Tonasket, Tonasket, Washington. You can search around for that. There's quite a bit of information on their activities there, and specifically that Sage Mountain Studio LLC. I want to just continue down that path of the religious teachings. In the documentary I mentioned, The Land of the Body, there's a section in here that I just want to read kind of verbatim, and I don't mean to take away from the documentary and the producers of that documentary. Watch it if you can, please. But I just want to talk about the weirdness, the ritual, the thing kind of at the heart of the teachings. So there were, as I said, tents as structures on this land that was purchased. There are many of them, other structures that were created. And in one of those structures, it was kind of like the holy place for the leader and a few other high level members. We mentioned the feet washing thing, changing that to the full body. I'm just going to read my notes as I was watching this. There was a person describing a common thing amongst cults where he says, once you get in, if there's any contention inside, like if you create some kind of tension within the group, you'll get cut off from the place. And you know that often your family is involved there, and they're probably going to stay, but you'd get kicked out. So there's this heavy pressure to always stay in line, always do what you're told, to do anything that especially the leader, Mark, would ask you to do. He says, I would never have done the things. I never would have done what I was asked to do if I weren't afraid of being cut off. So this guy, Mark, comes out, and he
or Daddy, as he's known.
Oh, yeah, Daddy. This guy, Mark, comes out to this individual, and he says, okay, it's your turn. He says, I have no idea what they were doing. We're on this church camp out. We're on the property there that we've discussed. I walk into the yurt. These two people, and these two men and two women, are dancing around like they're in a trance. They're speaking in tongues. They disrobe me. And now my father-in-law, he's saying, this is my father-in-law, my boss, and the elder in the church took my clothes off of me And the person doing the interview says, well, why did you let them do that? Like, why would you let them do that? And his response is, my job, my family. I'd be cut off if I didn't do what they told me to do. Then he describes Mark taking his bare hands, washing his whole body, even fondling me, every bit of me for a while. He was speaking in tongues while he was doing it. And when he was done, he said, now touch my body, touch every part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is as the documentary continues, this was a ritual essentially that would occur with many members of the institution, men, women, and then it's described that children, at least people who were around 16 years old, were subject to it as well. That's why it seems to be very dangerous, at least to my ears, to my mind, and something that needs to be looked at.
There's also a lot of reporting out there. It hasn't reached a wider audience yet, but there's some great work regarding showdown. Like, this is ongoing. This is live fire right now. And you and I talked about this off air before recording this listener mail segment. We want to be careful regarding legality. But there are some chilling things that have already come out. I want to shout out the journalist Dominic Bonney, who over on their Substack talks about the idea of children being regarded as property. And then it ties into multiple instances that, as far as I could tell, once I have found the right cult called the Body, as far as I could tell, there are multiple instances of mothers being manipulated to abandon their children in the hands of people who seem to be established predators. At least, again, from the reports.
Yeah. From the reports and from recordings that were made allegedly on the property and, involving the high leadership of this group. There's a section on the bodyintl.com where you can listen to recordings. I think there are probably clandestine recordings of members of this group, especially the high-level leadership. You can search for it with, quote, hear the voice of a cult leader, tapes from the Body, unquote.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with that, thank you again for writing to us, Alexandra, and we will definitely look more into this. For now, let's take a break, hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll come back with more messages from you.
And we have returned. We have some more strange things ahead, but I think for now, let's go to something a little bit less evil while we're waiting to explore the Body further. Out of context, that quote is going to sound terrible. But let's go to Jessica H. Jessica, you wrote to us over on the Conspiracy Stuff Instagram. You said the following, and this is something I was aware of. I don't know whether my colleagues, I don't know how much you guys have heard of this, but I don't think it'll surprise you. So Matt, Paul, Jessica says, hi, I've always listened to your show, but I've never reached out before. I know you all talked about cartels earlier this week, but one of my 7th grade Mexican-American students came into class talking about a cartel monkey, a literal monkey dressed in a diaper and bulletproof vest who was killed in a clash between different cartels in Mexico earlier this week. From what searching I did, it seems this is not the first exotic animal taken in by the cartels. I'd love to hear more from you guys about what connection the exotic animals and the cartels have. So this is a bit of a rabbit hole, or a bit of a hippo hole, if you want. One of the first times that I personally found out about the fascination that a lot of narco lords and cartel groups have with exotic animals was due to Pablo Escobar, the guy who became very close to being a parallel government of Colombia, and then probably would have, had a good chance of becoming the president of Colombia had he not gotten popped. Pablo Escobar is the reason that Colombia today has a population of wild hippos. Hippos, by the way, are by far the most dangerous non-human land animal. They're big. They kill more people than tigers, more people than bears, more people than lions. You know what I mean? More people than badgers, in case you were worried about that one, and cassowary, if you're worried about large birds. Hippos are crazy dangerous. Don't be fooled.
It's because they sit in the water like that with their little snouts out, and you can't really tell what it is until it emerges in this giant beast.
Also, don't let the ungainly size fool you. Those cats can book it. And I don't care how in shape you are, you cannot one-on-one PvP a hippo. It's just not going to happen. Give it up. And you can see plenty of YouTube videos confirming this. But so that's the entry point that I had on this. And then on another show we do called Ridiculous History, we looked at how Escobar's hippo herd continued after his fall and his death. It's been a known thing for years among Mexican law enforcement that drug cartels in that country and in other parts of Latin America have exotic animals, large felines, again, lions and tigers. Like there are people from the Sinaloa cartel who have started Instagram and Twitter accounts, like back in 2015, that show that jaguars and so on. They're being kept sometimes as, well, as status symbols, like as flexes, right? They can also be used to smuggle drugs. You can get snakes across the border and stuff them with cocaine. Very bad for the snake, pretty good for business as long as you don't get caught. We've also talked about cartels finding alternative income streams, right? Because, again, you hear the phrase cartel associated with drugs pretty often in the West, but a cartel does not necessarily need to be selling something illegal. Cartels engage in monopolization and price fixing of any precious resource, right? And they want to ensure that they have the highest profits possible. So OPEC is a cartel. It's just a cartel for oil, which is legal, right? And countries that are members of OPEC, some of them have also started planning for the decline of the fossil fuel industry. And that's something that will eventually come if civilization continues. Cartels are the same way. Like if you legalize certain drugs, you are cutting cartels off. You're kneecapping them. You're figuratively crippling them. So what else can they do to bring in money? Hey, say the cartels, we're not just about cocaine. You want an endangered South American bird? We can get you that. You got a macaw, 90 grand, bro. It's yours. We'll take it off the lot. Oh, no, wow. You're into pythons? For you, 30 grand.
How about a spider monkey? Comes with its own body armor.
Yes. Now that is what Jessica's talking about. Jessica, we're talking about this because we wanted to establish that this is not a one-off thing. There are several categories of cartel interaction with exotic animals. 1, flexes. 2, smuggling vehicles. 3, a new income stream. Just like avocados, right? It's a new way to make money. And the endangered animals part, the exotic animals, as they would be called, that is an old trade. But like you said, Matt, this spider monkey, this poor guy is a little bit different. Jessica, you sent us some great links. One that I think stood out to both Matt and myself was Luis Chaparro's Vice article. Here's the headline. A narco monkey was killed during a shootout and now has his own narco corrido, which is a ballad, right? There's a genre of music which is all about the exploits of los narcos. And it's like, it kind of glorifies them sometimes, and it kind of, tells the stories in a tragic way. But these are the stories of the great gangsters, the great criminals, the cartels and the drug dealers. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of the songs are actually really catchy. I listened to this song about this poor monkey. But maybe we describe it. This is pretty recent. This is earlier, just last month in June. There were photos that propagated on social media showing a dead spider monkey alongside 10 other people who were killed in a shootout. The monkey was wearing, like you said, Matt, he was wearing a tactical vest and a diaper and a little camouflage hoodie. I don't know why. The little camo hoodie makes me feel bad because, even with very, very bad people, most folks, the majority of human beings have a soft spot. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody you think is an absolute POS, they might have a guinea pig. A guinea pig, which is just like the most why are you here animal on the planet. It's like it has no defensive, no offensive capabilities. It's a furry little potato. And the worst person might have poured all their capability for empathy and affection into little Rupert, their guinea pig. And I'm wondering if this is a story like that, because as reported in this Vice article, Matt, the monkey was found hugging the chest of a human corpse. And then in another photo, it's lying beside that same corpse.
Yeah, that's sad. Guinea pigs, by the way, are apparently delicious and are eaten. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, I've eaten guinea pigs before. Yeah, not number one on like my imagined menu, but you got to do what you got to do. So was the monkey? This is the question: was this poor, unfortunate monkey, changuito, which just means little monkey, was this monkey actually evolved in exchanging live fire? I don't think so. I think it was kind of like a mascot. You know how like throughout World War I and World War II, various groups of soldiers would have their mascots. Some were functional, like dogs that could sniff bombs or find survivors. And others were just like, we really dig this cat. We found this cat in Normandy, and this is like our cat now. Let's promote him. These animals get promoted a lot too, we should mention.
Yeah, man. Maybe little Lieutenant Monkey. That's adorable. It's a dangerous line of work, even if you are a kitty cat.
Yeah. And it's a sad story to read. You can see the reports. We'll move on. But to answer the question, Jessica, yes, there are extensive ties between cartels and what you would call exotic or endangered animals. And they're sometimes functional. They're sometimes brutally and cruelly used for financial gain. And sometimes they're just flexes. But then other times, like what seems to have happened here, they're beloved pets, which is kind of a bummer. But I propose at this point, Matt, maybe we pause, give everybody a second to check in on their own pets, their kittos, their doggos, their monkos, or what have you. And then we'll return with more messages from you.
We're back, and we are staying in Instagram for a moment to read a message from Sam. Sam in Japan, in fact. Here we go. This is what you said, Sam. So I just heard your listener mail episode, and I want to say I, too, cannot donate blood or organs or bone marrow due to living in Germany on a U.S. base in the late 1980s. My father was stationed there, and we lived on base. The reasoning is that the beef that was on base was sourced from the United Kingdom during its mad cow outbreak. As a result, I've done a ton of reading on prions, and they're fascinating and terrifying, and honestly, might make a good episode all their own. Did you know that they literally cause the proteins in your brain to refold like origami, leaving gaps? And that each protein that misfolds then touches another, causing it to misfold, and so on? Also, I'm supposed to tell any surgeons that I may have been exposed because any gear they use should be destroyed. Whoa. Autoclaves, intense heat and pressure for sterilizing things like scalpels and the like, probably won't kill prions. We have absolutely no idea how to kill them if they exist. Finally, They can activate at any given time, from immediately after exposure to decades later, which could be a huge problem because at least where I grew up, chronic wasting in deer is the same as mad cow. And basically, everyone in the North Woods of Wisconsin hunts. Well, that's a terrifying idea, Sam.
Yeah. Sam, when I go through the conspiracy stuff show messages, as always, thank you to everyone who writes in. And this stood out to me because it confirms more in depth some of the stuff one of our earlier conspiracy realists told us. And it also gets confirmed again in Instagram. Travis, you wrote to us and responded to listener mail saying the following: the vet that was in Germany in 1989 or 1990 and couldn't give blood. Responding to this, I was born in 1990, 3.5 months premature. I was given a lot of blood transfusions. I have never been allowed to donate blood. I wish I could, as it saved my life. I get you there, Travis. It's the rule here in the United Kingdom and Ireland that anyone who had a blood transfusion in the years between 1980 to 1996 can't donate blood ever, which is a huge chunk of the population. This is something that I think a lot of people in the United States are not aware of, right? You hear about blood shortages, right? At least I hear about it a lot in the vampire forums, but, we've been saying that since the 1600s, there's just never enough blood. But now it's affecting humans too, and I wonder, Matt, you and I talked about this a while back on our previous listener mail segment, with how risk averse a lot of the blood donation organizations and institutions are by necessity, and how it's very difficult to test for these prions. But what's your experience giving blood been?
It's been pretty tremendous. Every time I've done it, I've not experienced any adverse effects other than just being a little hungry afterwards.
But that's what you get, the crackers, you get the juice.
Oh, yeah. I think just knowing that you are giving life, like as both listeners say, especially Travis, it's a tremendous feeling knowing that you are giving literally lifeblood so that somebody else can be helped, right? It's a part of you. Someone else is going to benefit from that. And you don't need all that blood because your body keeps making it, pal. So that's, hopefully. You're right, Ben. You know what I don't like is giving blood for testing purposes, like during an annual physical or something like that.
Yeah.
Feels like they take way too much for what they need to do.
I know. When you get the cavalcade of tests. Yeah. And by about vial 3, you start to wonder, what are you guys really doing with this? Right?
It seems like you could combine those processes, right? If you're ever going to get an annual physical, you take a certain amount of blood, which, proportion of it would be donated, and however much you need could be tested. But you do testing first, then donation. So if your test comes out well, then you can donate.
Yeah. So let's break it down. The average person has if you're human, you have about 5 liters of blood in your body.
That's a lot.
Or 10 to 11 pints, which maybe doesn't sound like as much.
Think about taking down 10 or 11 pints of beer.
That's
and
what I was
imagine
thinking
it's
too.
Filled with blood.
I know. So knowing that, and I'm playing with different measurements here, when you are donating blood, or whole blood, as it would be called, the ideal amount to collect is about 500 milliliters, but they'll go down to a minimum of 460 milliliters. And the total blood volume, of course, your mileage may vary. It depends on your height, your weight, etc. For some people, depending on your blood type, you are, I don't want anybody to feel dismissed here, but there's some blood types that are just practically more usable, right? Like if you have blood type that has no platelets, then you are a universal donor, you're in that type O city, then everybody wants your blood, right? This stuff is incredibly important and it gets ignored often. As a matter of fact, I can't remember, I think I mentioned this on air, maybe during that segment, Matt, but one of the ways you can tell if a military force is really getting into a sustained operation, when they start setting up their infrastructure, they start transporting blood too for injuries.
Really?
Isn't that weird? That's a weird way to tell if you can get that information. Yeah.
Yeah. If the blood is moving, so does the army. That's really weird.
I know. Don't tell CNN, because then they're going to make it a whole weird, kitschy thing. And they'll be like, all right, now we've got our meteorologist doing the blood report for the conflict in, insert country here, whichever one this week.
Just thinking back to the awesome response we got from, I think it was Jasper, about how the body works, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the BIA or the oh man, I've already forgotten it. Well, it was so smart, I've already forgotten it. But it was just the body's CIA equivalent, where the intelligence agency figures out what all the stuff is in the body. I'm just seeing these weird comparisons with the blood flow, like literally blood flowing on a macro scale somewhere before the troops arrive, or in this case, the white blood cells arrive to attack something. I don't know.
So, we did a classic episode in lieu of a listener mail segment last week. So we did want to get to listener mail today. We do have, I do, and I know you do, Matt, several other stories that we wanted to share, but they're in depth and we want to give them their due. So we're going to hold those for next week, and we're going to end on an important update that I wanted to provide following on this idea of blood donation and the institutions being risk averse. As we mentioned, I believe I mentioned it in that listener mail segment, for a very long time, people were not allowed to give blood on the basis of their individual sexual orientation, who they're attracted to, basically, specifically gay men. But what we needed to include as an update there, and we mentioned this had been the law of the land for a long time, or the policy, but we mentioned it had changed, but we didn't give you the specifics. So when the pandemic hit, when COVID hit around April of 2020, the FDA relaxed its longstanding restrictions on gay men being allowed to donate blood. And this wasn't because they said, hey, we're being pretty discriminatory. It's because they said, hey, we need blood. They relaxed their standards, and that's because in March of 2020, there were 86,000 fewer blood donations across the entirety of the United States. Not because people stopped donating blood. There are a lot of people who do it regularly because, like you, Travis, they want to help. Maybe it helped them or a loved one in the past. It wasn't people didn't want to help. It's that blood drives had to be canceled due to the spread of a modern pandemic. As we speak now, human society is trying to recover from this because there may not always be a continual supply, but there's always going to be a continual demand. So with that being said, your body is your own, your choices are your own. We've talked about the hazards of organ donation in the past. And, you may be physically unable to give blood. You may be religiously or philosophically barred from giving blood. But if you are able to do so, it truly is a noble thing to do. You are probably never going to meet the people whose lives you save. And you may never get some kind of reward or clap on the back or something for doing it. But it is a way to make the world, if not a better place, a little bit less worse. And you get crackers at the end, at least here in the US. I don't know what you get in other countries.
You know what we need to do? We need to gamify blood donation. So that each time you donate, there's some kind of tracking system with that bag of blood. And then when it gets used on your app, your blood app, you get a couple points or however many points or whatever. And and then you could use those points to firecrackers.
You know where it gets dangerous? What if at certain thresholds, when you get those points, what if you do it the way like school teachers who are all dramatically underpaid in the US had to do fundraisers? You and I have family did this. So you have like the construction paper thing, but it's a blood bag. And then it just gets filled in with red as you get closer to the funding. And then wait, when you get to the top, when you hit that threshold, you get a free loot box on some kind of multiplayer game.
Oh, that's pretty good. I was going to say Pizza Party, but I think I like loot box better.
Well,
Yeah.
loot box, I would argue loot box is more unethical because those games are made to be addictive.
Yeah.
And then people will say, okay, I don't have $10 to throw into this machine, but I need that new skin. So I'm going to sell my blood for skin. Beautiful.
Oh.
All right. Well, no judgment and brainstorming. But we are going to call it a day. Please don't let at least my dumb jokes get in the way of the message of being a good person, even if it's not being rewarded. And please let us know what you think about the connections between cartels, drug lords, smugglers, and exotic animals. Perhaps even more importantly, let us know, please, about up-and-coming cultic organizations in your neck of the global woods. We are going to have several upcoming episodes with this, and we want you to be a part of those. Also, reach out to us. As always, if you're looking for resources to help someone who has been taken in by an organization like this. Thank you, of course, to Sam in Japan. Thanks to Alexandra. Thanks to Travis. Thanks to several anonymous people we haven't gotten to yet, but will introduce soon. And thanks to Jessica H., of course. Take a page from their book. Join us on the air. We'd love to hear from you. We try to be easy to find online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the hits. Stay tuned to our YouTube. We have some fire coming up. We're not exactly sure when or how much we're allowed to say about it other than that. So get in on the ground floor, smash that subscribe button or whatever we're supposed to say. And hey, if you don't sip the social meds the way I'm guzzling the steak will today, why not give us a call on a telephone with your ears, your fingers, your mouth, all the, your stuff.
All the bits. Use your bits and call 1-833-STD-WYTK. When you call in, you've got 3 minutes to leave a voicemail message. Please, at the top, give yourself a cool name and let us know if we can use your message and voice on the air. If you've got more to say than can fit in that 3-minute message, why not instead shoot us a good old-fashioned email? We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.